eat for lunch? Yes. Yes. Well, trust and believe you won't get the items in here today. All right. We're happy that you're here. Thank you for joining us for the last breakout session of this amazing summit. If you've had a good time over the last 2 days, just make some noise. Awesome. So I'm Dr. Angie Barfield, born and raised here in Fresno. I've been in education for 20 years. I actually started as a basketball coach, X's and O's, but it was really impacting the lives of young girls. And so I kind of transitioned into education because of situations that were happening with my own children in public school. And what's really crazy and just how society is set up, I don't have the same last name as my children because I left their dad, so I took my name back. But my children were with me, and that system didn't know they were mine. Yeah. They just couldn't click, right? So I got to actually witness some of the things that were happening to my children without my employer knowing, well, those are my kids. Until something happened. They're like, well, we need to call their parents. Right? And so it was that journey that brought me here. It's the journey of watching 37 black children in a school district be called the N-word verbally and also physically, if you know what I mean by that. Sometimes you don't have to say the word in order to, really imprint it. And so it has been my life's work, and if you were here yesterday, you got to see the amazing students that I'm blessed to be able to work with on a daily basis to find their place, which is why I made the comment, and I'm sure that lady's gonna approach me and go, what did you mean like that? But I just need you to understand, is like, that what you saw is that's our kids. But sometimes we have to help those kids claim their rightful places in certain spaces, right? And so this particular workshop we're talking about, we want to help districts. I know I do that, and Mr. Watson will tell you who he is here in a second, but the minute we can start building and fortifying courageous spaces that are school settings, the sooner we're going to be able, as the education specialists, to really do what we were called to do, and that's educate. But there's so much muck, right, that surrounds this that many of us just don't feel comfortable being in certain spaces. And so we're happy that you're here, because it's gonna take a village really to make this right. And the village doesn't have to be a monolithic thing. It has to look like this room right now, so that we can build these things. So we're gonna go through some things. We're gonna have some very difficult conversations, so just get ready for it, because we know that this is gonna help you to go back to your perspective learning spaces to help them thrive and grow. Okay, because in the times that we're in, our students need to know there's somebody there for me. Okay, so it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Watson.
Valerie, how we doing today? Let me ask you, I know you got in the breakout session before this. I don't know if it was freezing in there or what. Was it freezing in there? Let's talk. Well, it wasn't here, so I'm gonna talk it up for some heat. I can take my coat off. My name is David Watson, and I am currently the Dean of Schools at Golden Charter Academy. I originally from Sacramento, California. I moved down to Central California to start my law enforcement career in 2001. That was a wonderful career. Did that for about 13, 14 years. To be honest with you, I made the transition to education. I moved up to the state of Washington, to Seattle. Real talk, y'all, I like to fish. And that's like almost impossible down here, right? So go up there, there's a lot more water. And really, I took some time off of work, and to be honest with you, what I ended up doing was, there's some seats up here, just fill on wherever you guys want. What I ended up doing was going to my children's school. My son was in 8th grade, my daughter was in 6th grade, and I just said, that first year I was up there, it was great because I got the opportunity to do what a lot of fathers don't get to do. And that is to be that room parent, to play that Mr. Mom role with my kids, right? So it was wonderful. Best year of my life. Hands down, best year of my life. I will tell you this, was I frustrated when I dropped them off at school or at the bus stop, I come back and I see a lunchbox? Absolutely. Or a backpack? Absolutely, right? They take it with them, but that's the nature of the beast. That's how it is when you're that parent. So I spent a lot of time volunteering at my kid's school, and it got to a point where I wasn't working there, but quite a few of the teachers would say, you know what, Mr. Watson, can I borrow you over here? Mr. Watson, can I borrow you over here? Sure, no problem. To me, those things were kind of easy because for me, when I grew up, by the time I hit the 8th grade, I was already in gangs. I've been arrested 3 times. I was on probation. And so I really did not have a favorable opinion of where I was going to go, what I was doing, so on and so forth. So my steps to go into education really were, number one, I want to make sure my children have a better educational experience than I do. Number two, there's plenty of other David Watsons out there who really needed someone to take them under their shoulder, take them under their wing, and get them on the right path. I initially started my law enforcement career. Before I ended, I would ask individuals that I supervised, like, what happened to you? How did you get right here to this point? And they say, you know, Watson, if someone would have met me when I was in middle school or high school and took me under their wing, we wouldn't even know each other. So at that point, I realized, for me, it was all about education. Because early intervention is the key. Period. Catching early intervention is the key. My wrestling coach introduced me to wrestling. I did not want to do anything. I didn't want to have anything to do with that sport because the second he was like, hey, you should come out for the wrestling teams. No, I'm not wearing that uniform. Not gonna work, right? But I tell you what, that's the best sport in my opinion. I'll be biased, the best sport there is. Because even throughout my entire law enforcement career, if I ever got to that point, get somebody on the ground, that's all it takes. It's a wrap up. All right? So I went into education. I started my educational career in 2015. Went back to school, got another master's degree in teaching, that was great. Then went back to school again, got a master's degree in educational administration about 4 years later. So I am one of those kids that never thought I was going to live to be 18, 21, graduate from college the whole 9. Last year, well, we're already in February this year. Thank you. So in May, I'll be turning 51 in May. So I hit the big 5-0 last year. And for those of you that are not 50 yet, hey, boy, you don't know what you're missing. It is nice, right? I'm one of those 70s babies. I was born in 74. So if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, please raise your hand. Was that the best time to grow up or what? Let's be real. Best time, right? So we experience things and we learn things, but a lot of times we learn some things from school, but during that era, during that time, you can go home, you talk to your parents. In my house, we had to sit down in the front room, we're sitting down in a circle, and nobody could leave until like my Uncle Clint, my dad was done giving us that education that we needed. Then we could go outside and play, right? Completely different now because, you know, as parents, we have children, let's be honest, we don't know anything. Our kids don't think we know anything. Everything that, if it's not on this right here, it's not the truth, right? So now we kind of go backwards and really wish that things were the same way they were when we were kids and we were complaining about things left and right, all right? So let's fast forward. When we talk about the power of words, those courageous faces, really having those conversations, like I was used to having those conversations. It's not like it was anything new, but I grew up already knowing that. So it's not like I really had to learn about that later in life, right? Some of us do not have that opportunity. So as we focus on creating these spaces, please understand in this space, we are all lifelong learners. We all have to start somewhere. I don't care who you are. No one started with 5 years experience on day 1 of their job. All right? No one woke up with a BA and just said, hey, I'm good after preschool. No one ever did anything like that. All right? So we're going to start off with some protocols. We already know what we're here for, am I right? All right? This is a real training, a real conversation. Does anybody here have thin skin? I said thin skin, not thick skin. Thin skin. Great. Let's all move forward because we're all lifelong learners and it's all about learning. As we move through this, we're going to be asking you questions because it's not just us sharing our stories or our experiences with you. We want you to share your experiences with us as well. We all good, family? All right. Protocols. We're going to listen and believe each person's reality. Just because you weren't there to witness it yourself does not mean it did not happen. All right? Be comfortable with and curious about being uncomfortable. Some of us walk into spaces and we actually know what it's like to be uncomfortable. But it's so normal, it doesn't look like we're uncomfortable. But in this space right here, just be comfortable with it. All right, no one's pointing fingers, no one's blaming anybody, just be comfortable. Be authentic and accept feedback. If I don't know what I'm talking about, please let me know. All right? Show up and stay engaged. Everybody showed up. We pretty much got a couple of seats a couple of empty seats, but this is a great group of individuals, all right? So we're glad that you showed up, and we want you to definitely stay engaged. Maintain confidentiality. I always say what we talk about in here, it stays in here, right? But what we learn here, leaves here. Everybody with me? Yep. What we discuss in here stays here, but what we learn here, leaves here. Okay? Step up and step back. We have quite a few people in this space. If you have a question, that's great. But if you have 4 questions and you keep asking questions, first one, second, just look around and make sure we give other individuals the time to ask a question, okay? On top of that, feel free to ask questions whenever you want. All right, so we ready to start? Okay, let's start. Who can tell me what that symbol is? What does that represent? We can talk out loud here. Throw it out there. What does it represent? Nazi party, right? The reason why is because whenever we think about the power of words, a lot of times symbols, there's no words here, but we automatically know what that is, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Now, what is that symbol?
The same.
First one's a symbol of peace.
Thank you. This one right here, this is the Buddha symbol for peace. All right? This right here is a swastika right here. We don't have to know what this word means. We don't have to be able to read it, but we can look at it, and that symbol is powerful and strong. Okay?
And we saw that in the video yesterday. But as you saw it in its authentic self, which was peaceful. Not like this. So your mind went to the others. I'm sorry, Mr. Watson,
No,
go ahead.
good. Jump in whenever. So, whenever we look at this symbol right here, we automatically assume that it meant something else, right?
Do you see the difference?
This is a little bit thicker.
It's thicker, but see how this one goes this way.
It's opposite.
They're opposites.
Right. So you think about it. We have
Love
a
and
symbol of
hate.
peace, and then an individual came in and said, I'm going to take this symbol of peace, and I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to make it a little bit bolder, and it's going to represent what?
Negative.
So just imagine the power of words. If we start saying this symbol right here represents what? Hate. And it doesn't. This right here symbolizes peace. The power of words. The biggest thing that we want you to get out of this right now, if we're going to have conversations, whether it's symbols, whether it's individuals, number one, we have to be prepared. That's the hardest part of teaching, am I right? People enjoy teaching, but who enjoys doing lesson plans? Raise your hand. That's what I thought, right? We don't like that part.
We actually have somebody in the last section that I like doing
Hey.
lessons plans. They're like, what?
I say grab some candy from the middle of the table. Right? So when it comes to being prepared, we definitely want to know what we're talking about because the power of words, very, very important. All right? Everybody stand up real quick. We're going to make a circle down the back side of the room. Here's what's going to happen. We're only going to do this for a couple of minutes. I am going to say one word. I'm going to say that word to Dr. Barfield, who's right next to me. All right, we all circled up. Let's get some circle action going over here too. Y'all bring it all the way down here.
Okay.
Here's what's going to happen. It is. I'm going to say one word. And I'm going to say that word in Dr. Barfield's ear. And so the next person, you're going to tell the person that's next to you, quietly, you're going to whisper it in their ear. You can only say it one time. You cannot repeat yourself. All right? Everybody with me? So, listen up. You can only say it one time. Let's be quiet so the person can hear what the other person is saying to them. You ready?
You can only say it once.
That's what I got.
Okay, well, don't say that. If she gets it right, everyone here gets a free ticket to next year's conference.
Stars.
Hold on.
Right there to us, sir.
What's the word?
Burning dog.
The word is buttercup. Think about this. There's approximately 31 of us inside this room, right? So the power of words are so important. You're going to trust the person in front of you to tell you the exact word, right? We don't know where that breakdown was, but usually it's about the 8th or 9th person, somewhere around there. But the bottom line is this.
45 people.
That's how important the power of words are. Because if we can't say one word and relay that to 31 individuals, we got some work to do, right? We got some work to do. All right, grab your seats.
Thank you.
Okay. When we do this work, it's very important to know exactly what we're talking about. So the same way we just played that game, and I heard somebody over here just called it what? What do you guys call it? Telephone? I gotta remember that now. I know that's what it's called. So it's called telephone. So when we think about this work and have these conversations, number one, we have to know what we're talking about, all right? We have to know. So we're gonna look at this word right here, and I want you to think about the definition of this one term. Definition of racism. Who can give me a definition of racism? There's no right or wrong answers. Anybody. Racism, the definition of racism. Come on, family. Yes, sir?
Discrimination on a person by the basis of their skin.
Discrimination on a person based on their skin. Anybody else?
Say hate based on characteristics that aren't similar to your own.
Hate based on characteristics that are similar to your own. Yes, sir? Believe race is a real
Yeah,
concept?
I was gonna say the social construct of race and for the sole purpose of differentiating some people as better than others based on phenotype.
Gotcha. I'm gonna give you like a quick definition of racism, right? That's gonna stick with you.
All of it.
An unfavorable attitude towards a person because of their race or culture.
Yep.
All right? Just the way you said it. You guys said it, but just a different way of saying it. An unfavorable attitude, which is like, I don't like you because you're black. My attitude is, I see you, I don't like you because you're black. Now we have this other word, discrimination. Quick definition of discrimination.
I think of it as the behavior, the verb, like the action of hate or racism.
Action.
Treating someone differently.
Treating someone differently. Discrimination is an unfavorable action towards a person, right?
Because of it.
I'm not gonna hire you because you're black. These two words right here are like two of the most, I don't know what it is about these two words, but people struggle when it comes to having these courageous conversations because a lot of times they confuse racism with discrimination and discrimination with racism. So it's the same way we just played that telephone game right now. We say one word, everybody in this audience, you're gonna trust the person in front of you and give you the correct definition. But if we were talking about racism, then we're strictly talking about attitude. If we're talking about discrimination, it's an action. All right? So as we move forward in this space, if you are defining discrimination as racism and racism as discrimination, we definitely have to get that work done. We have to make sure that we're talking about the correct words because this could be one conversation. The one conversation you have with that one individual, and you might be able to get that person to see your side, but if you're not explaining it to him in a way that works, that differentiated style, or you don't know the definition of the words yourself, all that hard work you just put in that, you just lost it. All right? Now, you guys know what guided imagery is? Guided imagery is you're going to close your eyes, get real comfortable, feet flat on the floor, put your hands on your lap on the table, and you know what? You're just going to go to La La Land real quick. And I'm going to give you a word. And when I give you this word, I want you to think of just the first word that comes to mind. All right? Close your eyes. Don't worry, Dr. Barfield and I, we're watching everybody, so no one's candy's going to come up missing off the table or anything, all right? All right, so the first word we're going to talk about is, when I say the word cold, what comes to mind? Just shout it out. Ice. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed.
Freezing.
Ice, freezing. All right. How it was earlier today in that first session in this room. That was cold, right? All right.
Immigration.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I was just
Keep that right there.
Okay.
The next one, I see someone trying to open up their eyes and close them real quick, and I'm looking right at her. She didn't know how to do it that good. The next word we have is doctor. What do you think of when you hear the word doctor?
Medicine.
Medicine,
All right.
educate, I hear you.
Conspiracies, I heard that too. Ocean, the word ocean. Waves, water, relaxing.
Vastness.
There you
Ooh,
go.
yeah.
Sharks.
Sharks. What about this word? Eyes still closed. Peanut butter.
Yeah, Harvard.
Hungry.
All right. The word sunset.
Sunrise.
All right, sunrise. Keep your eyes closed. This word right here, what comes to mind when you see or hear the word rainbow?
Jesus.
Jesus?
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun. Oh,
Somebody
that was
money.
me last
Money, there
one.
you go.
Leprechauns.
Great.
Cereal, Lucky Charms.
That's right. Now open up your eyes right now. Those are all great ways. So when we talk about that guided imagery, your eyes are closed and you're just kind of visioning that. So if it's cold, you're like, oh man, ice cubes outside. I'm in Alaska someplace and it's just very cold. You paint that image in your head, right? So we talk about these courageous conversations. I want everybody to look at the screen and I want you to tell me how you feel when you see this word.
There ain't no rainbows.
I said we're getting real, right?
Angry.
Angry, sad,
Hate.
Hate.
hate, called
Say
out.
again. Called out.
Powerful word, right? Now let's be honest. We can read that and it does something to us. Did anybody say it? Doesn't matter if it's this big or this big. We say it, we're looking at it the same way. So we have these courageous conversations. We already know this is an aspect of having a courageous conversation. But when it comes to this word right here, that is, I'm not going to say the only word, but this is probably the most powerful word when it comes to having these courageous conversations. I don't like hearing that word. I definitely don't say that word. Think about that. I don't like hearing that word. I don't like saying that word. But you know what's tough about this word? We still have individuals that are being called this word after years and years and years. And on top of that, sometimes as adults, we've heard this word on the playground, in the classroom. Let's be honest, how do we handle it? Did we handle it the right way? Did we handle it the way that we want someone to handle it if it was our child that was called that? Process that for a second. Because that's a big word right there, am I right? Are we afraid of this word? Are we afraid to talk about this word? We're being vulnerable now, family. Definitely not a rainbow, right? This right here is one of those words. We're going to come back to this. But this is one of those words. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what someone says. If you hear this word right here in a crowded room, you're going to be looking around and see who said it. It's a very hurtful word. And the fact that sometimes in certain communities now it's used as a term of endearment. Like, we all have some work to do, right? We're all lifelong learners, and our job is to meet not just our scholars, but our peers, our colleagues, exactly where they're at. Right? We good? All right. Let's talk about some words in other cultures that we may not know that this word means something completely different because we're just kind of using it just to use it. You with me? Who's heard of this word gypped? How many of us have said gypped? Have I said it before? I'm not, like I said, we're all being vulnerable. It means defrauded, swindled, cheated. But here's the origin. It comes from the word gypsy, which is a derogatory name for the Romani people, also known as Roma. It's a derogatory term. We want to use derogatory terms? It's not about necessarily, sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. But once we know, if we don't change and we keep saying the same word again, let's be real. We become part of the problem and not the solution. I don't want to be part of the problem. We have too much of that going on right now, period, right? So let's all make a commitment to be part of the solution. These people have faced a lot of persecution and discrimination throughout history, including baseless accusations of theft and child abduction. So Jimmy is like, you took something from someone. So now you're like abducting children and things of that nature. We all know what stereotypes are, because there's stereotypes about every single one of us in here. We all have them within our own culture as well. The stereotype said they were thieves, which led to the use of the term jip. That's one. Peanut gallery. Who's heard of this term, the peanut gallery? Right. A group of people who criticize or complain about insignificant things. Origin: in the 19th century vaudeville era, the peanut gallery was the cheapest section of seats. Had the worst view. All right, had the worst view. Well, here's the thing though. The peanuts were sold at these shows, and sometimes people seated in the cheaper seats would throw peanuts at the unpopular performer. And guess who sat in those areas? Black theater goers. So they weren't necessarily selling popcorn, they were throwing peanuts. You guys ever been to a restaurant where you sit down at the restaurant, they give you some peanuts when you walk in, you crack the peanuts open and you throw them on the floor?
Logan's.
I did that one time, and I threw one on the floor just to kind of get that feeling. I was like, nah, I can't do that. I had to pick it up. I just couldn't do it. And honestly, I'm thinking, somebody has to sweep that up. You know, I just couldn't do it.
Well, let me ask you just to jump in here. How many of you are teachers in here? Raise your hand. How many of you could say that you know another colleague whose classroom could be considered a peanut gallery? How many of you are courageous enough to address that and talk to them about it? I don't know.
I heard that.
Because we do have some peanut gallery classrooms where a lot of our students are not receiving the best education. And believe it or not, that's on us. Because as they go grade to grade, a colleague of mine, Kobe Wilkerson, says this very well. He was like, in the lifetime of a 6th grade student from K through 6, they probably will only have 1 to 2 good teachers. And it won't be the same like year after year, where we lose students. So just kind of, I wanted to bring that out. It's like we laugh about this, but we've got classrooms where people are throwing things at our kids that are just not landing well.
Hip hip hooray. Who said this? You said it before. Let's be
I know.
honest.
We heard hip hop.
You know, naughty by nature, you gotta hit. You know what I mean? Yeah, we did it, right? So, it's like a congratulatory cheer, right? Derived from the anti-Semitic chant, hep hep. Here's where it comes from. This was a rallying cry to attack Jewish people in and around the German Confederacy in 1819, during what came to be known as the hep hep riots. At some point, hep hep became hip hip, and hooray was added to the end. So what you could say instead? Hooray.
Just say.
Y'all with us? So imagine these things that are like, this is just something normal that we say, and come to find out, it's just, we want something like this said to us if we were part of that same culture, right? Just by that response, I kept it quiet for a reason. We already know, like we in school right now, we in class, right? So we need that feedback, all right? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a kid. All right, everybody put their foot. You know what I mean? Come on, you got 5. All right, you're at boom, let's go, we're playing. You know, hide and go seek or tag or something like that, right? Man, check it out, y'all. It's a children's rhyme often used to make a random selection, right? This rhyme is well known in the days of slavery in the United States. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe, but in the previous version of the song, the N word was used instead of tiger. You ready to sing this right now? All right? So when you think about this, like, part of me, I was like, man, I was saying all kinds of stuff as I was a kid, and I didn't even know, right? Like I said, well, we just don't know what we don't know. Now, if we continue to travel down that same road now that we're educated on this. We become part of the problem and not the solution. Right? I'm gonna go back to this one a little bit. Actually, we'll just go right here. All right? We already know what that word is. We talked about it a little bit. The meaning is ignorant, dumb, stupid, or not educated. Do we know that was the definition of that word? Because if you look at certain books or certain dictionaries from the past, it'll say that. But then all of a sudden you look at it like Urban Dictionary. Like, come on, y'all. Urban Dictionary is going to say something else, right? So we know where it comes from, but it's used as a term to demean or shame a person of African or black heritage, but it's also used as a term of endearment. Not just by black people, but other people as well. When we hear this word, we had it on the board, it was quieting. We're like, because you know what, it stung, like you felt it and it wasn't even said. And if you represent a certain culture and you hear that, the response that it brings up is just like, sometimes you just want to like look around the room to see if there's any cameras, because I'm about to get it. Right? It's tough. It's very hard to hear that. Right? We're going to show you a video real quick. And the video will kind of help you understand that. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, it's not working. Can we play the Feel It video? Think we should do the video, Dr. Barfield, or keep on pushing? What do you think?
We can do Phil.
All right.
You got this, Tim?
This one or is it the other one?
That one. That's
That one.
This is the one.
Yes, sir.
I'm not black. And to me, it's very, very false when people say, oh, I understand. Excuse me? How could I possibly understand?
When you can ask me what my story is, you can come ask me, and you can take my hand, and we can stand in the pain together.
See, that,
I'm just saying to all you white people, welcome to the pain. Welcome to the pain. You know, we've been drowning in it. You know, welcome. I hope you struggle as much as we struggle. I hope you go under as many times as some of us have gone under. And I hope you fight your way back to the top and just keep fighting and stay alive. Welcome to the pain. When you talk about being an American, I don't know what that is. I call myself a United States citizen because I know what that is. It's very specific. But people have decided what an American is. And many times it doesn't look like me, and it doesn't look like you, and it doesn't look like you, and it doesn't look like you, but it looks like you. So I said, the hell with it. I don't need it. I don't even know what it is, and you can't explain it to me. You either can't or you won't. You know, so. And then when I hear you say, I really respect where you're coming from. I do. I can feel the pulling and the, you know, working. I can feel it, and so I respect it. But when you then, you know, throw in, you know, I'm bending over backwards. I have to hear that every day at work. We're bending over backwards to make sure we, you know, we do this and we do that. It's like, why can't it just be what we do? We tell people stories. We get honest about people. Why does it have to be, I'm doing these gymnastics? I'm trying to figure out who I am, who you want me to be, who you see, how not to offend you, how to know how far to offend you before I lose my job, what to say, how not to get offended, how not to appear too sensitive. And then I come to you with my pain and say, you know what happened to me today? And it's like, you know, I'm sure they didn't mean it that way, baby. It's like, well, did you just hear what I said? I mean, can you stand here with me before you push it aside and just feel it? Just feel it with me. Don't explain it to me. Feel it with me. Then I'll know you're in it with me. But if you can't get there, then I don't want to hear anything you have to say.
Ooh. Does that make y'all feel it? Go back to the slides. Do we the importance of feeling it. Go ahead, Dr. Barfield.
So I'm curious to know, has anyone in here had that experience with a coworker? Care to share?
Yeah, growing up in California, I really wasn't exposed to anything, I didn't think any racism. It wasn't until I was in the military, went to boot camp in South Carolina, and we decided to take a road trip to go have lunch somewhere because we finally graduated. And there's a group of us from all over the place, and we had a couple of buddies from Louisiana who were with us. And we're waiting to get into the restaurant, and there's a host who's saying, hey, you guys might want to go a little bit further, to get lunch. And I'm thinking to myself, the restaurant's empty, why would we have to go further? And I'm completely ignorant to this whole thing, because like I said, I'd never experienced anything like this. And then you have an owner walk to the front and say, we're not gonna serve any N-words. And I'm sitting there like screaming at the guy, and then I have people like pulling me back and saying, it's not worth it, trust me, you're not gonna get anywhere. The trucks are gonna show up pretty soon and it's gonna be a bigger issue, we need to get out of here. I had no clue that was still going on in the United States until I experienced that. It feels surreal. It doesn't feel real, to think that something like that can happen. And I think now social media kind of is exploiting a lot of this stuff, but back then, that's the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. And it wasn't easy.
Thank you for sharing. Now I'll go to the next level. Have any of you teachers had that experience with a student where they've been called this word or victimized? If you care to share.
Yeah, well, I was actually gonna share, I shared a little bit last, but I've had this as a parent, so I'm a white mom raising Black children.
Okay.
And I shared in the last one that, more so with my son, because my son experienced much more racism in our community, and how so often, I dismissed him. He would come to me and I did not sit with him in his pain. I said, let me do something, or I did not sit with him. And I remember when he was in high school, at one time he said, I don't need you to make it better, I just need you to be here with me right now. And it was such a lesson for me in the fact that I was never going to understand, and he didn't need me to. He didn't want me to understand. He just wanted me to say, I see you, I see this, and then when he needed me to take the next step with him, to know I had his back. But I failed as his mom so many times, and we're very close and I love him, but he's been my greatest lesson to his not that he should have had to been, but and then I watched it happen to him in school over and over and over again. And to this day, he's actually in Canada. He goes to school in Canada, to university there, because he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to be here. And so we see it with this is our restorative practice team, but we see it in our classrooms all the time. We've done several staff training sessions on addressing the N-word directly, brought in community partners, and they just, we walk into rooms and it's just constantly still there.
They don't know how.
They
just don't.
They don't want to.
They don't feel comfortable being uncomfortable and addressing it in the moment. So many of the students I run the suspension program are sent to me for this year, and I can have the conversation with them, and I do. I've had 2, 3 last week. But in the moment, they're not saying it in the moment. And I'm not on site with these kids. So my conversation is important, yes, but I'm not there in the moment squashing it there. And that's a lot of our conversation today and yesterday was how do we bring this to our people? And we'll help you, but you have to do it. You have to be uncomfortable saying, and we have a 0 tolerance policy, right? And still it's happening.
So part of my issue with this word is now, all we hear is N-word.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is watering down
Absolutely.
the power of it. Mm-hmm. It's easier for everyone else to say, well, you said the N-word, right? No, let's just call a spade a spade. No, he called me a nigga. Period. And it hurt. He didn't call me N-word. If he said N-word, it would be different. Right? But when we won't feel it because it makes us uncomfortable, we cannot negate the pain that the one that was traumatized by it is feeling. Even as a Black female educator. A lot of times they don't call me an idiot, but they treat me like one. And that hurts just as much. I almost would wish they would call me that, right? But then the restorative side is, come on, Angie, you know they didn't mean it like that. Just go talk to them. Hell no. No. You're not gonna get a second chance, right? And we do this to our students. If we're gonna talk about comfortable spaces, creating courageous spaces, this is the first step. You too, we have to feel it as the educators in spaces of power, so that we can recognize that that child in that moment is hurting. And I think Mr. Watson will say it a little bit further on, quit trying to fix it. Because if we haven't fixed it by now, you're not gonna fix it in 15, 20 minutes, right? It's just not gonna happen. So, yes, sir.
Question. You know, Ms. Watson said something earlier about you gotta start to address these things early, right? Like you talk to kids when they're younger. Like a lot of that fundamental understanding as kids is helping them understand why certain things are wrong. Why do we not do that? You know, I'm a principal for a K-12 school. I'm also a professor at Fresno Pacific. Why are we not teaching new prospective teachers what world they're walking into with, you know, the things that we're dealing with in our classrooms? Why are prospective teachers not taught specifically because of the demographic they're going to serve? Hello, this is what you're walking into. It's so generalized. You know, we're forced to give them the very topical. It's very topical what we're teaching our staff, and then the school themselves are responsible for teaching our educators and molding them into the fabric, you know, woven into our fabric of the culture we have. That to me is so unfair.
Professor to professor, we have to build it into the curriculum.
Yes, we should.
I've done it. I was a professor at Fresno Pacific. Those students had the hardest time with me because I put it in their face.
Right.
It's like, if we're about organizational development, I need you to have a global mindset. And the first thing you have to identify with is, you're gonna be working with black people. But if I don't put that in the curriculum and challenge them to look at it, they're not gonna grow. So I've just put into the system a defective piece, right? As school leaders, we have the responsibility to ensure that our curriculum reflects these things, and there's a way to put it in there without just slamming the kid upside the head, right? Like, we can do this as adults. Mr. Watson, he took y'all on a journey. He had you close your eyes, and y'all was thinking about rainbows in the ocean. And then he said, open your eyes. And you're like, oh, man. No, man, keep going, keep going. Our kids, TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff, that's this. But we have fun with it. You see what I'm saying? So as educational leaders, we have the power to put this in the curriculum in such a way that they will stop doing it. They're going to start realizing on their own. But like I said yesterday, please don't put it on our children to solve this problem for y'all. Stop doing that to them. Because it doesn't change for them by helping you. It just helps you feel better. It doesn't help them feel better. So it starts with us. Just put it in the curriculum. Your future teachers is like, what's the data behind the classrooms you're going to be serving? What do you think they're going to look like? Because it's not going to be 85% white, 5% Latino. It's not going to look like that. You have to give them the picture. And then say, now, create your curriculum based on what the numbers show is going to be sitting in your classroom. What would you want to teach them? What would this look like? But don't forget Jamal sitting over here in the corner, because he's probably the only black kid you're going to have. When we can do that, we change. We're going to change the whole dynamic of education. We have to be okay with it. And quit putting teachers into these schools without at least that in their mind. We're setting them up to fail, and we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's called facts. That's facts right there. You know, real talk, I have a BA and 3 master's degrees. Never thought I was gonna live to be 21, 22, 23, like I said before. You know where I got the most education about this? Athletic. Because it was not in any of my programs. Master's in Organizational Leadership, Master's in Teaching, Master's in Educational Administration. No, at home. So I ideally, it's like trying to create that holistic environment where the scholars in the middle, and then you have the school and the home life as one. But they're not talking about it at school. There's too many individuals within that school that are afraid to have these conversations. Not talking about it at home, but afraid to have these conversations.
There's an interesting thing she said in the video too that I think is worth talking about. She said the phrase bending over backwards. You've been putting up a bunch of stuff that like we don't know the meaning of. It makes me think of like, oh, we have a high bar. There's like a place that we don't even know where that is. It's like this nebulous idea that we just point to, but we know like we really have no idea what that means to like not reach our bar. So I think of like bending over backwards, we say it a lot. And if we're talking about education and teachers, it's like, what is the literal, what am I meaning when I'm saying bending over backwards? It's like some probably level of minor inconvenience where I feel like I have to negotiate the space to like I feel like I have to follow rules around you or something like that. Like, but it doesn't, what does it even mean when I say it?
And I think often that bending over backwards is really about them, people doing extra work to keep the status quo. Like you're working extra hard to keep things the way they are. And just to kind of amplify what you were saying as well, the other day in the room, sorry if this person is in here, we can talk about it later, but somebody in the other room mentioned like, it's because we're so constrained by curriculum and we're so constrained by these things. And I was dying at our table because I was like, we're not. Like we are the leaders who have all the opportunity in the world to do that work. Like we decide what goes there. Like I sit in a space of privilege in my district where I can absolutely say, don't teach anything today and just teach this. Like I have that power. But instead I'm bending over backwards to keep this, I'm not, but like in general, like I'm bending over, well some days I actually, unfortunately, but like I'm bending over backwards to keep the status quo. And that takes far more work than putting in that lesson into my university class or putting that into my teacher's hand or putting funding towards creating space. Like we have all the power. Like it's just such a misconception that we put out in education to keep doing what we're doing.
And that's why we want you to find the courage to take the next steps. So,
and just to kind of extend exactly what she was saying, because I felt the same way when I read that. You know, and it also got brought up that we don't have the time. And I'm lucky enough to be an engineer who also worked in the school systems, and you know, I can count the number of times that I've had to work till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to get something delivered out, right? And so I wanted to ask that person in that time when she said we don't have enough time. It was like, did you get into the business of education to work 8 to 5 or to change lives?
8 to 2:15. 8
to 3.
Don't be putting on time.
8:05 to 3:05.
Yeah.
And
We're finished.
no, and just,
Oh, sorry.
you have to make the time.
And I think Chaco was talking about that a little bit yesterday as well. Time. Yes.
And actually, the way I interpret it was not like her anger about you're telling me you're breaking your back. It's not that we should make the time, there should be no necessity to break your back at all because that's just what we should be doing.
Right.
Like, that's just our job, but it shouldn't be an extra, it shouldn't be a checkbox, it shouldn't be a thing to have to think about. It's bare minimum.
Yes.
That's just what we do, and then the other things.
That's what we signed up to do.
Right, yeah.
Let's be honest, if you go
Why
into
would you teach
education,
every child? Teach
let's, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, you're good.
You go into education, there's already a sacrifice. You already know that you're in education because more than likely you had an educational experience and you was hoping that it would be better. So what we do as educators and what we do as colleagues, we see something in each other or another individual that they may not see in themselves. So we see these scholars, we see something in them that they may not see in themselves, because here's the thing. You can sit in a classroom of 27, 30 kids, and 15, 20 years, you have no idea what those kids are going to be doing in that 15, 20 years. I remember watching something on the Olympics, I can't remember her name right now, but she won like 4 gold medals like in the swimming events. She had this post, and it said, Mr. such and such, whatever the name of the teacher was, you always told me that I would get nothing out of swimming. Who wants to be him? You know what I mean? Who wants to be him? But we have to see something in another individual they don't see in themselves, because if we don't, we stunt their growth. There's a reason why so many individuals say that, hey, I don't want to be a teacher, because my educational experience was not good. I want nothing to do with school, I just want to get it done and over with. There's a reason why. But if we don't go, it's like anything else, if you don't put the time and effort into it, you're not gonna get the desired outcome that you want. So if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, like I said, we become part of the problem and not the solution.
All right.
Okay? Courageous Conversations About Race, Mr. Glenn Singleton, this is the author of his book. Have you guys read this book yet? You guys have the book? Check the book out.
Gotta get it.
Get it, get it. All right, first thing he talks about is experiencing discomfort. The second I put that word on the board, that was discomfort throughout this whole room. Because all I heard was, One word, like I said, the power of word. Was there a word said at that time? No. But we know how that made everyone feel. Experience discomfort, it's there. Stay engaged. Everybody walked into this room, everybody's been engaged so far, that's great. But when that word got on the wall, boy, everybody was engaged at that moment. And it didn't matter how much you were like, I don't like reading that word and I'm gonna look away. You still knew it was up there. Listen for understanding. This is one of those environments where I'm not the expert, Dr. Barfield's not the expert, no one here is an expert on this. But we still need to listen to understand what individuals are saying. No fixing, that's big. Remember the video? Oh, he didn't mean that. Dr. Barfield, you know what, somebody called you out your name, you know what, it's gonna be okay. I'm sure they didn't mean that. Why am I trying to fix her experience as if I'm in her shoes? So what makes me think that I have all the answers and I can just go ahead and make people feel better? Nah. You said something to another person and disrespected them. And I'm going up to see if they're okay? No. I can't fix anything for another individual. Empathy is important. Empathy is very important. It doesn't matter how hard I try, I cannot be Dr. Barfield. Doesn't matter how hard I try, I cannot be white. Doesn't matter how hard I try, let's be honest. Brother, my hair is never gonna look like yours, man. It ain't gonna happen for me, right? I gotta be comfortable in my own skin, right? I gotta be comfortable in my own skin. I gotta love myself and realize that God made me perfect the way that I am. And I'll take that. When we talk about no fixing, I can't be another person. They gotta feel that. That's what she was talking about. Y'all keep on wanting to come up to me and say, oh, it's okay, I know he didn't mean it. Nah, you're not feeling what I'm feeling. You're making an excuse, you're enabling that person. Because the next time it happens, guess what's gonna happen? You know what, I'm sure he didn't mean it. The same person doing those types, instead of addressing the issue right then and there.
And that could be that one student on your campus, that multiple students have come to you and said, they said this to me, and somebody on the administration has just constantly said, don't worry about it. We can't. These children are experiencing this. We have to stop it. And the only way we stop it is by dealing with it directly. Flat out. And it's not a fix. He didn't mean it, don't worry about it. Quit telling children of color to stop worrying about things. They're not ducks. This stuff does not roll off their back. It sinks into their very being and it crushes their spirits. And then you wonder why they come in your classrooms and they react. Because we're talking about slavery in a book. Or you're showing something that's like Dr. J showed yesterday, the image of the erasure of lynching. We didn't see the person hanging there, but we knew. And it doesn't change. It's like in literature. I have students that have done research projects on how many times the N-word is in the book Huckleberry Finn or all these other great literatures. And their research showed 212 times the N-word is in that book. That's 212 times in a classroom that they have to hear somebody say that word and then look at them. But we said, it's great literature. That's 212 times you just stabbed that child. That they have to go home. Or they go out in the hallway and somebody goes, and then they bust them in the head and then we're like, you're suspended. No, suspend the whole dang classroom, including the teacher. Because of the harm. Does that make sense? What happened to that courageous space in that moment for that child? So, there wasn't one.
You guys know whenever we have scholars that are experiencing things like this and it's not resolved, You know what they end up being? Adults who have some of those same issues that are never been resolved. Speak your truth. Like I said, just because we did not witness something happen to you, or we didn't see it ourselves, does not mean that it did not happen. Take risks. We all took risks walking in here. Did any of y'all hear about what this presentation was like from a person that went to the first session? Did y'all expect this? Okay, y'all took it.
And it's not over.
We ain't done. We ain't done. All right? Last but not least, expect and accept, not close. You know what this means right here? You can have the same conversation with the same person 50 times in a week, and guess what? They're like, you know what, David? You made some good points. I hear what you're saying, but I still believe what I'm going to believe. We have to accept that. But does that mean we stop having a conversation with that individual? No. Because you might be that one person who says one thing and it might click. How many of you have kids that are teenagers or older? Let's be honest. How many times, don't nobody want to show their age, I got you, everybody's shaking their head. How many times have you had a conversation with your child or a nephew or a niece and you keep telling the same thing? Listen, this is how you shoot your free throws. Plant your feet, center your foot, follow through, this is how you shoot your free throws. They don't do it that way. They push the ball with two hands, right? A complete stranger comes up and says the exact same thing. And what do? Exactly what that stranger said and exactly what you said you're going to do, right? Bottom line is, they're just not going to get it from you sometimes. And sometimes you have to enlist the help of someone outside of that space or outside of you to kind of help you understand. We good so far, family? You guys know what these are right here? What are they? Shackles. Chains. Slavery chains. This picture was taken from the Civil War Museum. I got it off their website. Here's what's unique about this. So many different times you have individuals that have been called, I'm not going to say the N-word, because this is a space where, like, we're going to say the damn thing. So many times individuals have been called a nigger. We are talking about, now that we're in February, Black History Month, how often do we talk about the positive contributions Black people have made to society? How often do we teach that?
Outside of February.
Exactly. Because we talk about slavery, right? We all have a slavery component. But how often do we talk about the positive contributions individuals have made to mainstream society? We really don't. Not that much. But there are so many different inventions individuals that are descendants of individuals who were wearing these chains have made to society that we just don't even think about. We don't talk about because it's something so we're just used to it, right? So we have like descendants of slaves. African descendants of slaves, 8 of us. It's very important because each one of us comes from somewhere. You know, they say majority of individuals come from the continent of what? Africa. So we look at this space right here. This is something that it's here, but we just don't get to see them too often. A lot of times, these are going to be like in a museum where you're going to see a picture of it, right? Well, today's something different. Today's going to be something different. And I want y'all to share this with me. It's completely up to you. We got some gloves that we want to pass out to everybody here. I want to show you something.
And while he's doing this, I want you to, just for a moment, to process in your mind. Because we hear this in education where they say, you know, we're starting to hear now about DNA change and how slavery has impacted the DNA of generation after generation after generation, right? So these chains were once on one of my ancestors. This is what they carried. And that impacted the greatness, because remember, let me just preface this. I'm not the descendant of a slave. I'm the descendant of a king and a queen from a continent that is so powerful, even today. And they were kidnapped and enslaved and put on boats and forced to come over here and do physical labor because they were the most brilliant mind on the planet at the time, and that nobody else could build what they could build. I want you to take that for me. Those people are the people who were forced into this. Kings, queens, architects, engineers, scientists, astronomers, the most brilliant minds. And when you take their freedom away, and you force them into this, it changes the DNA and it moves it a little bit. All that to say this. A lot of times the children that are sitting in your seats that you might think don't get it, this could have put a chink in the chain for them. Doesn't mean that they're worse off. It just means something changed for them. And then that went to the next generation, and the next one, and the next one. So you have poverty, oppression, discrimination, racism, all these things that are changing. But it stems from this. But that's not where they started. Okay? So I want you to, as you're getting ready to do this next thing, because it's about to change. Remember, the books don't tell us everything. History is his story, not my story. Okay?
So we look at this, and we understand that individuals were kidnapped, some of them traded their soul, this was placed on them. There's a big difference between a slave and an enslaved person. Big difference. So you imagine these going on an individual, and then all of a sudden their name, their identity is changed, and they're called what? Enigma. Some of the smartest individuals you could ever imagine. Individuals that created songs to depict the routes for the Underground Railroad. Rice and seeds sewn into their hair, don't store it. But then we come to a space where now this same word that was utilized for individuals that were enslaved, kings and queens, and then now fast forward to 2025, we utilize that same word today. It's highly disrespectful. So here's what I have for you.
And remember, our kids don't know their true history. Because the history books are teaching it, not the culture. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So a couple of years ago, I love artifacts. I went to a museum, and as I walk into the museum, I see some shots.
We're not doing any exams in here yet.
Yeah, ain't nobody, no medical exams at all, right? None. So I walk into the space and I see this slavery exhibit, and I'm like, oh man, because you feel that, and even though you look at it, you're like, that's a big part of my history, I don't know. It was taken from me. Right? It was completely taken from me. So I saw these. And I said to myself, I was like, I gotta get a closer look. So the door opened, right? And I looked at the door, and it was like the back door or whatever to the exhibit. And so I walked back there and I said, so I gotta ask you a question, like, these right here, can you tell me about these? Like, I would really like to have a pair of these. He said, what do you do? I said, I'm in education. He says, why do you want them? I said, because I have scholars in my classroom that don't know anything about, like, really their true self besides what I'm teaching them. And when it comes to this, they don't know about this aspect of slavery. The person says, well, I can't get you a set. He goes, they're not for sale because it's a lot of money. He goes, but what I can do is get you a set that does not have the lock. The lock goes right here. This part right here goes around the foot, and then they have to walk around and hold this piece, so it's like this. So he reached out to me a couple weeks later, and we talked about, what it would take for me to get them, and I did that. I take these home, and they sit on my mantle. I'm gonna tell you why they sit on my mantle. Because I could look at this every single day and think to myself, like, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. I'm looking at this. I have zero to complain about. When you look at these, there's all types of markings on them. And apparently every little cut, indentation, design represents a body that wore these. These are not clean. The person I got them from said, do not clean them, do not oil them, do not try to refinish it or whatever it might be. I keep it the way it is. So I wear gloves because bottom line is, when we talk about certain things having bodies on them, these really got some bodies on them. All right? So I want to share this with you, mainly because I think it's important. When we talk about history, when we talk about that word, when we talk about these courageous conversations, sometimes you have to have that artifact that really, like, the power of words. I could show this to you and there would not be any words. Each one of us knows what this is. But this is something that you don't find this in the toy store. You're not going to find this in Walmart or Costco or nothing like that. This is something that's real. people were forced to wear this. So the same individuals that they called niggers and said, wear something like this, we are descended from some of those individuals. And Dr. Barfield in a minute is getting ready to read some of the most powerful contributions, individuals that are descendants, people that have to walk like this, made to our community, made to our society. All right? Each of you has gloves on. Whoever wants to come up and hold them, it's completely up to you. You do not have to, but it's one thing to see it in the museum, one thing to see a picture of it. But when you hear that right there, and you see how heavy these are, it's a whole different experience. So when you walked into this space, some of you, I guarantee you, none of you thought this was going to be the end of our presentation, but we're going to have some realistic things. And this right here is more powerful than a lot of words people can say. Anybody? I've never been measured before. That's a good question. Yes. And if you don't have the gloves on, you can wash your hands afterwards. I just want everybody to be, like I said, I forgot the book that they're actually in, but I need a break. You have about 10 minutes left. I know while we're standing in line to hold the chains. Anybody have any questions? This always seems to be like a quiet, emotional time for quite a few different people, so just stay in your own space. Do me a favor, put gloves on both hands. Just wash it afterwards.
Both.
shared, whatever you're feeling, let that come up for you, because that's what drives our work. You're never gonna forget this moment and what you're feeling right now, which means it's gonna aid how we serve these children, because they're carrying this weight, right? So please, don't suppress this. Whatever it is that's coming up for you, let that come up. Let that come up. But I wanna just share some names of descendants of the people that were enslaved, that were forced to wear those. So your mailbox, I mean, how many of us use mailboxes anymore, right? We just, but that was created and invented by a man by the name of Philip Downing, 1891. He created the mailbox. The traffic light, the ones we run through, we don't even pay attention to the traffic light anymore. And the gas mask were by Darren Morgan in 1922. The automatic gear shift, thank God. I mean, I know how to drive a 5-speed, don't get me wrong, but thank God for the automatic gear shift, Richard Spikes, 1932. The clothes dryer, George T. Sampson, 1892. Automatic elevator doors, can y'all imagine if we had to continue and crank that thing? Alexander Miles, 1887. The folding chair that got its comeback, 3 years ago in Alabama? John Purdy, 1889. Gas heating furnace, Alice H. Parker, 1919. The golf tee by George Grant, 1890. Any golfers in here? You can thank a black man for holding that ball. The modern toilet, because we know you used to have the outhouses, right? The modern toilet, 1872, Thomas Elkins. Home security system, Mary Van Britton Brown, 1966. So you, ADT, Vivid, all of y'all can thank a black woman for that. The pacemaker, anybody have a family member that has a pacemaker in their chest? Otis Boykin. Potato chips, George Speck, George Crumb, 1853. The thermostat, who turned off their thermostat to save their PG&E money? Frederick Drones, 1935. He also invented the first automatic refrigeration system. The super soaker, anybody got kids that like the water guns? Lonnie G. Johnson, 1990. The touch tone telephone, Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson, 1987. And the gas mask was by Mr. Garrett Morgan. But these are all descendants. Remember I told you, the people that were brought across the Atlantic were the most brilliant minds that the world could ever have. And they were brought here to help build the America that we know today.
Let's be honest. They were not uneducated. They were not dumb. They were not stupid. And they definitely were not made.
And those are the children that are sitting in our seats. So let's continue to build these communities so that we can allow our colleagues to understand that the information that they've been given is not the information of truth, that sometimes it has to start with us. We have to be the first ones to elevate. Mr. Watson is the Dean of Schools at Golden Charter Academy, and he is in charge of ensuring that those 400 lives that he is in charge of thrive and grow. But it's not just the kids, it's the teachers, it's the learning guides, it's the after-school program people. We all have the power to impact change, positive change, if we truly want to. But it starts with what we know and how we process what we know. So you holding those chains in your hand, my hope for you is that you don't forget that in your hands was the ancestor of the children that you serve. So do right by them and honor that and protect them, because that's how we build courageous spaces.
Just wanted y'all to know, we hope we gave you an experience here that you never had before. So please use this. What we discuss here stays here. What we learn here leaves. All right? We appreciate y'all.
question, but don't forget that all the music that we love and adore today is rooted in rhythm and blues, and that's rooted in.
Even Cowboy Carter. Let me just put the plug in for Beyonce. Country music is black music. Yes.
This is kind of not personal, but I'm curious about your group of students that you work with and mentor. How do you end up with them?
How do I end up
in your academy, right? Like how, because they were all from different school sites. Some were from the same, but.
So what I do, part of my work is I go up and down the state of California and I'm building black student unions in high schools and middle schools. And then we work with those adult advisors who are responsible for them. I was like, I need to know who, I want your best and brightest, but I want the one that you just see something in them. And then they give them to me. But a good chunk of the time, it's the kids. They're like, you want to be with Dr. Barfield? Because we was talking about such and such. And so the kids just wait. So I have waiting lists of kids because I can only take so many. So, you know, it starts off with an adult saying, I see something in that kid, Angie, and I know you can help them. The next year, it's the kid saying, you need to, MJ is that kid. The young lady that was on the end, the younger one, that was her. They were like, we see something in her, we just can't pull it out of her. And then she became the one saying, y'all need to come. And it just built itself up. And I can't serve enough. I have to start, Dr. J told me yesterday, you need an apprenticeship. And you need to start training people to help you do this. So, but that's how I get them. So it starts with you, actually.
We have.
Yeah.
Our district partners with Dr. Angie Barfield, so you can come at it from a district level.
Yeah.
And all three of our high school BSUs and the advisors work with Dr. Angie, and it's been incredible, a game changer for our advisors and our kids, and turning it from a club to a program in our district. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Stephanie. My pleasure.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I partner with you to make sure that I'm making some substantial change to my curriculum at present.
Absolutely. I'll give you my card. You can call me anytime because I'm right here in front of them. And I'm an FPU alum.
There you go.
I went to FPU too.
I'm a Clark Atlanta alum. But I got my undergrad and my master's at FPU, and then I got my doctorate from Clark Atlanta University, which is the oldest liberal arts and graduate HBCU in the nation for black people. So when your Martin Luther Kings and W.E.B. Du Bois's needed their doctorates and their upper grads, they had to go to Clark College to get it. So I'm proud to say I'm a graduate of the Clark Atlanta University. Anyone else? All right, we are done, I believe. Yes?
Have a wonderful day, y'all.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you all.